Good afternoon. I want to say very warm, bright and sunny day. It is Thursday the 15th of June. I've got a nice hot cup of tea and a box to continue unboxing. Now I've already pulled out a couple of things from this, including this journaling game in which you play a set of scrubs worn by the staff and patients of at a hospital, and you journal about the experiences that they have whilst wearing this set of scrubs. Escape from New York, a cinematic adventure from Evil Genius Games for the Everyday Heroes role-playing game. So they're basically a great source book for the John Carpenter film. And lastly, what have we got in here? I have this. The Lord of the Rings role-playing 5th edition, the Shire Adventures. Now, so this is published by Free League Publishing. It is the Lord of the Rings role-playing is essentially the 5th edition, the Dungeons and Dragons adaptation of the One Ring 2nd edition, published by Free League Publishing. And one of the things that Free League did for the new version is a starter set, and that starter set focused on basically everything you needed to play the game, and 5 adventures and background on the Shire, which it will be familiar to many fans of the Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth. And all those adventures are set in and around the Shire, and you play hobbits going on like their first adventure. But the Shire Adventures takes that content, basically the description of the Shire and also the adventures, and adapts them to this version of the basically the settings rule set, the 5th edition compatible Lord of the Rings role-playing. And this is quite a nice light rulebook. And so what we've got here is Shire Adventures is a 5th edition supplement for the Lord of the Rings role-playing, offering all you need to take your first steps into Middle-earth and experience the adventures hobbits get up to when they cannot avoid it. Explore the Shire with a thorough description of its 4 farthings and 5 exciting ready-to-play adventures. Fully playable, also by taking the roles of some hobbits whose descendants will go on to do extraordinary things, such as Primula and Rory Branderbuck, Paladin Took, and Bilbo Baggins. So that sounds great, because essentially you're going to get to play characters not necessarily seen in the Peter Jackson films, whether that's The Hobbit or indeed the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but sort of like in between the characters who exist in between those 2 films. So we open up, we have the really nice bit of poetry, sung by Bilbo Baggins, The Road Ever Goes On and On, and a very nice map of the Shire. Now in the box set, this is all individual pieces, but here it's all been collated into the one book. And the contents page, and we've got the standard kind of style for Free League, which is to have the colour inserts there at the chapter headings with the contents listed underneath. Got a nice little letter from Bilbo, and this is to Balin just before Balin sets out to essentially set out for the Dwarven city in the Misty Mountains. Basically Bilbo saying, no, I'm not going with you, it's too dangerous, I'm really happy here, I kind of miss it, but no, I'm gonna look to sort of like my fellow hobbits and see whether they've got some adventuresome spirit. So prologue kind of sets it up, and so explaining things like, just general overview of the Shire, weapons in the Shire, before we get into more details, because essentially one of the things about it is that what hobbits are a homely folk, and they don't wander around with weapons. But anyway, we've got that artwork which you saw at the chapter headings in the index page, now fully revealed here, and here we've got a shot across the Brandywine River at the eastern edge of the Shire, before we have the history of the Shire. And here we have, the great Took facing off against the goblin in the famed battle. you know, basically, let's have a look. I'm trying to think. Where is it? You know, basically, yeah, you've got that big battle between the hobbits and the goblins, which is all the invention of golf. I'm just trying to find the, Brandaboris Bulrora Took of Longcleave, who led the hobbitry in arms against the foul invader. Essentially, Golfimble and his goblin horde to come down from Mount Graham, and infamously, Brandaboris Took struck Golfimble's head so hard it flew off and down into a rabbit hole and invented the game of golf. So we've got a tale of years of the Shire, so that's the history, basic timeline. A bit of a discussion of hobbitry in arms, which doesn't actually amount to very much, just sort of like, you know, a casual militia. You have the bounders walking the boundary limits just to check. Then families and culture. You know, essentially how, and then we've got also the discussion of essentially the hobbits and their relationship to Gandalf the Grey, which is generally, oh, that strange wizard. He occasionally comes to visit and does great fireworks. Geography of the Shire, whether from the Three Farthing Stone and out. Hobbit walks, because hobbits do occasionally like to go for walks, and there are things that might happen on their walk. And we've got another shot of that really fantastic map of the Shire. And then it breaks down location by location. So the West Farthing, and incidences which can occur there. And you've got secrets and little details thrown in there, like the fairies of the Far Downs. Then we move on to Little Delving and Michael Delving, which is very English, where you have names that follow the same naming conventions. You know, so I grew up in an area where there were lots of villages sort of like, you know, that are, you know, called Tarrant something or Winterbourne something, you know. And then we've got stats for Mare Pot Whitefoot, and then places like Tookbank and what might happen at a Waymeet, the South Farthing, where your hobbits might take put their feet up at the Inn at Sparrow's Rest, and things can occur there. Moving on, we have North Farthing, and out onto the North Moors, before stretching out and going east. You know, and east is the thing is that east is always sort of like is a dangerous direction for the hobbits, because you have the Brandybuck, and beyond, you know, you've got the Buckland, where the strange hobbits who live across the river, and of course, notoriously, dwarves are occasionally seen on the road. You know, they're all right, but you know, you don't want to really consort with them too much. Hobbits tend not to like outsiders. They're welcoming, but you know, occasional guests, that sort of thing. Even weirder, wandering elves. And then we've got, on the far east end of the Shire, you have Buckland itself. And then outwards towards the Old Forest, where you may well find the house of Tom Bombadil. So then you have the Conspiracy of the Red Book, which is the quintet of adventures for the for playing the Hobbits and the Shire Adventures. So we have an introduction, on a conspiracy most cracked, and the adventure really concerns Bilbo drawing together his young cousins and nieces and nephews together. There we are, we've got Bilbo, and sending them here, there and about on little quests, really kind of sort of like to test you know, their adventurous spirits, whether or not they are expert treasure hunters, you know, and they might run into trolls, a bit of a big problem for small folk like hobbits, and then go after most excellent fireworks, because hey, if you're going to have Gandalf visit, you definitely want fireworks. And they actually get a job as involuntary postman. I'm going to have to assuage a savage beast. And yeah, that is almost it, except for well, I guess I'll just say just how good the artwork is in this. This is lovely, lovely artwork. It's a lovely looking book. Yeah, we have the appendix. The appendix is really simple in this book. It's just the characters. So we have stats for Drogo Baggins, who is the father of Frodo, of course. This is in his young days, and it's the same again for with all these characters. This is Esmeralda Took, who is, of course, the mother of Merry, and then Lobelia Bracegirdle, who essentially in the Shire is really Bilbo's nemesis, who really quite desperate to get her fingers on Bag End, and honestly, if someone was to come along and say, I will run Shire Adventures, whether for the 5th edition version like this or the One Ring, and I had to choose a character to play, it would be Lobelia Bracegirdle, because she's such a crotchety old woman, even though she's quite young. So yeah, and then Paladin Took the second, who will be the father of Pippin, and then Premier Brandybuck, who will marry Drogo Baggins, and they will have a son, Frodo, and then Rory McBrundybuck, and lastly Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo Baggins isn't really, I don't think, is technically isn't playable as a character, because he's already been out on adventures. All the previous hobbits are 1st level, and he's 6th level, plus he's got Bilbo's ring. He has a huge advantage in doing, you know. So he could actually, you know, wander through this adventure and do the whole thing solo if you wanted, one-on-one, I suppose, but that's not how it should be done. But anyway, last, of course, you have the map reprinted again. It's what, you know, it's such a really lovely detailed map. So that's the Lord of the Rings role-playing 5th edition compatible supplement, the Shire Adventures, published by Free League Publishing. If you're a fan of Middle-earth, Peter Jackson's films and Tolkien's fiction, then and you play 5th edition, this is an absolute necessity, I think. You know, you're going to really enjoy this. These are really lovely, well put together adventures. It's really engaging. You know, there's a certain sense of charm to playing hobbits in their own, you know, on their own, you know, home grounds, as it were, experiencing mysteries and dangers for the first time, and discovering just how much of an adventurous spirit they have or have not. So yeah, I really like this. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post that. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box containing a book or game which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.